In this video, I'm going to provide an overview of the issues related to project management when we are handling a DW and business intelligence program in an organization. Let's first talk about why project management is important. Managing BI projects can be quite complex and requires a good knowledge of project management methodology. At the same time, it requires a good understanding of how BI works. So the person who's responsible for managing a BI program should not just be a project manager. She also need to know the details related to developing a BI project. Now, this is a necessary thing given that projects more often than not are prone to run late, be over budget, delivered at low quality, and more importantly, fail to meet clients' expectation or stakeholders' expectation. And that's why it's important that a project manager understands that the project is being undertaken for the sake of a business client or business group. So it's not just implementing a new technology. It's important that whatever we are delivering meets some business requirements. And that's why keeping the line of communication between business and IT department is crucial during development of a business intelligence program, in order to avoid any surprises, particularly toward the end of the project. Now, just like any enterprise initiative, a BI program should fall within a strategic vision of the company. That means rather than developing BI projects tactically and based on the needs of individual groups or departments, it's important that our BI program overall falls within the overall vision of the company and meets the business initiative driven from the strategic vision. This is what we mean a top-to-bottom approach compared to a bottom-up approach, where again, BI program is going to be developed in vacuum without understanding what's priority in an organization. There are two issues that are important to know when we are managing a BI program. First thing first, a sponsorship. Every business intelligence project needs a business sponsor. And when we say business sponsor, it's more likely this person is not part of the IT department. It's the person who can secure the budgetary requirements of the project. And that's why a CFO is a natural candidate for business sponsors, because CFOs are responsible for accuracy and transparency of enterprise information, especially with regard to financial information and responding to stakeholders. They're also legally required to, respond to any regulatory compliance and potential auditing of the firm regarding to data. So it means that CFOs could be a good candidate. Sometimes CFO might be too busy, or we might have too many BI projects. So it's, in that case, there are other business sponsors that need to be involved, but still, these are people who can guarantee that the project receives the required budget. So they need to have they should be of some sort of like authority in the organization. Let's say an executive, top management, people like that. And depending on the organization, the budgetary process, a funding might come directly from the business sponsor's budget. It might sometimes come out of the IT department budget. Sometimes the budget might come from various sources, various business groups. But again, regardless of where the budget comes from, a business sponsor must be involved. Another important issue is also program governance. Program governance basically help us ensure that project meets its goals and objectives, And also it meets the requirements that we had in mind. Also, a program governance help make sure that a BI program basically is revised based on the feedback provided to the development team from the stakeholders, from the end users. And when it comes to program governance, it's important that the communication should stay open and all the needs need to stay transparent. So, and very well, again, communicated. Because these requirements are going to dictate what the BI project is going to look like in the end. So in order to build a BI program, we can think of it like a development of a software that goes through several iterations and several versions. Let's say in this hypothetical example, we have 4 rounds or 4 iterations for the software. In each round, what we do is that we try to think of and plan for each of these items related to a certain BI program. Let's say think of a time frame, we think of the important deliverables, we think of the business sponsors involved, we think of the constituents, we think of the processes that are being affected, the applications being affected, the data that's required, and the source systems. If there's any service level agreement, let's say regarding to data accuracy, data latency, we set them up. If there's any application going to be retired at each stage, the budget, the project team, and other resources. So we try to come up with a list, again, as much as possible, and it's quite common to revise this list as we go along through the project. But again, it's a good way to think about a project, and as I have mentioned a few times in this semester, as with any other project, there's always a trade-off with resources, the time that's available, and the result or the scope of the project that we have in mind. That means, let's say if we have set a certain time schedule for the project, a certain budget, and also certain deliverables and quality. Now, let's say for any reason we need to speed up the project. That means we either have to increase the resources, the budget, and the people that are providing an input to the project, or we need to sacrifice maybe some deliverables or even quality of the project. So these elements need to be adjusted if one of them are changing over time. So again, resources is related to anything, labor, IT staff, consultant, developers, the skills they have and the experience, the money, the budget for the project, and also any infrastructure, including hardware, software, storage, memory, anything that we have discussed before. And for instance, if we have to adjust and change any of these, there are techniques. For instance, let's say we are running out of time. A common technique is to use the time box approach, where the time is fixed, the deadline is not going to change, but basically we change the scope of the project. So, for instance, we had to drop, let's say, 10 functionalities. We just fix them to 8. We don't sacrifice the quality, but we still meet a certain deadline that we have. But at the same time, there are a number of important factors that basically influence the scope and complexity of the project related to type of analytics, type of reports being provided, type of visualization, amount of data detail involved, the historical data that we need, anything related to the latency, data integration, data quality, number of data sources and the volume of the data, number of supported business users and their analytical styles, anything related to privacy, security, in order to again meet our expectation and the requirements related to each of these elements. We see that now we're dealing with a lot of complexity. So it is quite common for a project to fall out of a scope. But a good project management always tries to plan for it and make sure that if we are falling out of a scope, first of all, it's very well communicated and it's transparent. And then if we are losing on any of these, we have to make sure we adjust them. And again, we're communicating to the manager so they know we have to adjust their expectations as well.